Hello guys, Garcia here, and welcome to Reforging Horror. In this new playlist on the channel, the idea is basically to choose a movie, and I'm going to try to rework it a little bit, try to add some stuff, try to remove a few things that didn't work as well as they could have, try to see if we can add some new concepts, and by the end to see what we got, if we got something better, worse, or whatever. And this is the second video about 13 Ghosts in the channel. The first one was basically a horror movie review, and in the second one we are going to try to reforge it and to change a few things up to see what we get in the end. Hopefully it's interesting. So this is not by any means a step-by-step reconstruction of the movie. I'm obviously not a screenwriter, producer, or anything like that. It's more of a off-the-cuff discussion about possible changes, possible additions and subtractions to what was presented in the original movie, and that could be used in a possible remake one day. This video is going to be divided into three parts. The first one is sweeping changes, which are big changes that I would definitely make if I could. Small changes, which are less important changes that could be made without changing most of the movie as it stands. And optional changes, which are different ideas that the movie did not explore. And in this point, I'm also going to present to you two extra possible endings that take into account some of the changes that I proposed during the video. All changes that I'm proposing in this video can be used together or separately, and completely or partially. So I'm not implying that I would have wanted the movie to come out with all of them in the way and order that I'm proposing here. Just that it would have been cool if some of them were part of the movie when it came out, in my opinion, obviously. So a quick disclaimer before we start. I'm not a native English speaker, as you might have noticed already, so I will commit mistakes here and there, but hopefully I can make myself understood and communicate my ideas to you guys in a meaningful way. So let's start with the sweeping changes. These are the changes that I would make to the movie no matter what. The first three ones here are going to be key. So the first one, the movie had to be longer, maybe 25 to 30 minutes. For some of the changes that I'm going to propose in a minute here, the movie being longer is basically a must because there would be extra characters to work on. So the movie being longer is the first change. Second change, and this is a change that most fans of the movie probably would make too if they had the choice, which is to make a few of the ghosts more violent, especially the ones that have weapons. So basically the firstborn son and the great child, for example, would be very threatening if they would charge at people and attack people and stuff. So more violent ghosts should be the second change. And the third change that I would make here to the movie in the beginning here would be to remove Maggie. Maggie basically has to go. I don't think a comedic relief character is needed in this movie. It clashes brutally with the tone of the movie, and the fact that she kind of solves everything in the end by basically accident, by messing with the machine, kind of removes the possibility of different endings and different characters taking the spotlight and stuff. So I really think that Maggie has to go. Next change, I would change a character. I would change Damon. I would have him survive the junkyard sequence, and he would then go to the house alongside Kalina, and he would get imprisoned by her somehow in a square space, just like Dennis when he fights the Thorn Prince with the help of Maggie. So, and he would be killed by the firstborn son, which would be the first ghost to be released. So this change would create another series of changes to the movie. First of all, I would release the ghosts all in order. So in order of the Black Zodiac, so the firstborn son would be the first one to be released, not the Angry Princess. And that would also establish him as a threat too, because the first ghost is already killing people, right? And it's one of the ghosts in the movie that has a weapon, but doesn't use it on anybody. So that would also establish an extra threat in between the ghosts, right? So, and that also would make his spirit a trapped spirit in the house too, which for some of the changes that we'll see later on here is going to be important. So that's how I would change the Damon character. This next change here probably is the most important one. Is the one that would change the movie more dramatically out of the other ones, which is I would have more family members show up, more Kriticos family members show up to the house. Some of them would be in league with Cyrus, meaning would be kind of a few extra henchmen for him, and others would not. So I would have like a couple, like his brother and his son, which would be Arthur's cousin, right? So basically, these two would be henchmen for Cyrus, and you would have other two that went to the house just to listen to the will, right? The lawyer is going to read the will, so you have all these critical family members here. So they were there basically to see how the spoils would be divided between all of them. So all of them received the letter that the video letter that Arthur received in his house too. So that would basically lead to more characters, so more kills, which is one of the big fails as a horror movie that this movie has after the junkyard sequence, which is doesn't have a whole lot of kills basically, and including the ones that I complained in my horror review, in my movie review, which were basically invisible kills. So ghosts basically killing characters that are not using the spectral viewers, the glasses. So they would basically be killed by invisible forces without ever knowing what killed them, right? Another change that I would make would be with Kalina. Kalina is killed by Cyrus in the movie, obviously. So that means that naturally her spirit is also trapped in the house, right? Because she's killed and then Cyrus has the confrontation with Arthur before Maggie messes up with the machine. So I would have her, which is not bound by the spells that are binding the Black Zodiac in place. So she's free to move around. So the idea would be to basically have her be the ghost that exacts revenge on Cyrus by killing him, or be a part of the other 12 ghosts that are carrying Cyrus and throwing him into the eye. That would be a fitting end for her character, be a part of the final revenge of the ghosts, right? And the final sweeping change that I would make to the movie would basically be the ending, because without Maggie and with Damon's spirit trapped in the house, this is what I would do. But basically would be Dennis sacrificing himself for Arthur, so that part wouldn't change. And he, alongside Damon, spirits, so basically the two in spirit form, because the two are trapped in the house. The two would mess with the machine, since both are not Zodiac members, so they can move around, even with the spells and stuff that are playing on the speakers. So that they can go down there, both mess with the machine, so there's no need for Maggie in that part. And basically the rest would play exactly the same, with the difference that these two particular spirits are the ones that destroyed the machine and interrupted the spell. So this could connect to the Kalina's ending too, so you could do both of these without Maggie, and would be way less goofy and make way more sense, right? Because Damon already frees trapped souls. That's theoretically his job, by the little that we know of him that was shown in the movie. And obviously Dennis would definitely do that if he had the opportunity. And by the end, I wouldn't change anything about the final meeting between Jean and Arthur and the kids. And then we would go straight to the ending sequence, to the credits, and obviously avoiding the silly credit song that this movie has, and would use a more classical and somber theme to finish up the movie, right? So these basically were the sweeping changes, and now we are going to go to the small changes. Some of these changes, even though they are not as dramatic as the sweeping changes, they would change up the movie a little bit. So for example, the first one I already spoken about in the first category, which would be ghosts being released in order. I think this is one of the most confusing aspects in the movie, especially after Kalina presents to Arthur the whole explanation of the Black Zodiac and the order of the ghosts. So the Juggernaut, which is the last ghost, is going to be released last. So it's going to be the last one. So he's number 12. So it's theoretically in the correct order. But the first ghost released by the movie, or by the house in the movie, better way to say that, is the Angry Princess, which is basically right in the middle of the Zodiac, number-wise. So I would change it up. As I've spoken the sweeping changes, I would have the firstborn son to be the first one. So he would be also involved in the death of the lawyer too, and or maybe even the torso, but I don't know if the lawyer would be scared enough of the torso to walk backwards and be killed by the glass panes, right? So maybe that part would have to be reworked too. But I really believe that releasing them in order would have made way more sense, because at some parts in the movie, the Jackal, which is the number 11, he's already walking around, and the hammer is still locked, but the hammer is the number 10 on the Zodiac. So it kind of messes with your brain a little bit. It kind of reeks of that idea of releasing the ghosts only when it's convenient, right? I talked about that in the first in the movie review, about them having to contain the Juggernaut, because he was so threatening and dangerous that he had to be the last one. Because if he was released by accident before, he would kill everybody, or you would have to basically explain a way in which he didn't attack people for some reason. So that's why I would have the ghosts to be released in order. So the other thing that I would change here too, which is also a small change but a significant one, is because of the change in the order release of the ghosts. Kathy would not be attacked by the Jackal. She would have to be attacked by other spirits, so maybe the Pilgrimess, or maybe the Angry Princess that didn't attack her in the bathroom, but ends up attacking her in the corridor. So that would have to change as well, obviously. And another thing about Kathy that I would change too is the way she was captured in the original movie. It doesn't make really a whole lot of sense, right? Because she's basically sitting there while Arthur and Kalina are discussing the history of the house and why it was built, and kind of an information exposition dump while she's sitting behind them. And then when Arthur turns around, she's not there anymore. She was captured kind of in a completely silent way, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because Cyrus is a human, right? So and Kalina is there, so he had to be Cyrus. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So in this version, she would be captured by the new goons that Cyrus would have. Remember that I proposed in the sweeping changes that Cyrus would have some extra family members to help him out in this version. So these new goons would capture her, and the way they would capture her would be slightly different too. I would have the whole explaining sequence that Kalina has with Arthur, and then when they are walking around, for some reason the house moves, and Kathy gets locked behind a glass pane. And instead of waiting for the glass pane to open again, because she can't just stay still on a basement full of ghosts, right? So what they would do is they would try to meet each other in a different point of the basement. And during the trip, she would get captured by the new goons from Cyrus, because of that moving glass pane that separated them, right? So that would make it a little bit more palatable. Would make more sense, right? So that's what I would do with Kathy. The next small change here would be in timing. So Kalina would return to the movie by this point, after betraying Damon in this timeline that we are constructing here. And everybody would reconvene in the library after surviving the attack that Kalina helps, in which Kalina helps fend off a ghost. And in this timeline here, it would not be the Jackal, because he would not have been released yet. So they go to the library. There would be a few extra characters, because since the beginning of the movie there would be a few extra characters. So a couple of them would be in league with Cyrus since the beginning of the movie, another Kriticos family members. So one of them would be keeping an eye on Arthur and Kathy, and the other one would be walking around with Dennis, right? So to spread the surveillance in a way. So she would explain everything that she explains in the original movie when they reach the library about the Black Zodiac, the machine, the 13th ghost, and all that good stuff. But this meeting would happen earlier in the movie because the movie now is longer, so there would be no need to have this meeting like 20 minutes before the end of the movie. Remembering the original one at this point in the library, at that point in the movie, there would be 11 ghosts loose. So there would only be Juggernaut, the number 12 left. So because this movie, this version that we are building here, is slightly longer, and there are at least 4, maybe 3 or 4 extra characters still alive. So what I would do would be to delay the release of several ghosts. So I would have like 8 at most to be released, that were released in this point in the movie in the library meeting. So the moment that the two teams separate themselves and one team goes looking for Arthur's kids and the other team goes look for a way to stop the machine with Kalina and the character that takes the place of Maggie. And in this point, there would be 4 more ghosts to be released, right? Including the 3 most dangerous ghosts. So you would have the Hammer, that would not have been released in this version. You would have the Jackal, and you have the Juggernaut. So you have the 3 scariest ones and most imposing ones still locked. And from the moment that they leave and they get separate into 2 groups and starting walking around the house, then I would have these 3 ghosts released. And because we have extra characters, then I would start the actual killing of these extra characters in different situations. And because of the extra time that you have in this version and the moving house, you would have a bit of a leeway. You would have a bit of space and time to plan out these extra kills, maybe isolate a few members here and there, or maybe make the characters realize that this member is working with Cyrus, and or maybe this other character found out and they decide to get rid of them, or something like that, you know. So I would basically make the entire meeting in the library and the whole explanation about the Zodiac and stuff happen earlier in the movie. I would also have these new characters, especially the ones that are in league with Cyrus, to try to control the actions a little bit more of the characters. So the ones that are in Arthur group and the one that is with Dennis, for example, would give them ideas of where to go, what to do, but clearly not good ideas, right? Clearly ideas that would help Cyrus in some form or fashion. And near the end, when Cyrus kills Kalina, he would also kill a couple of his other family members that were supporters of his. Maybe in the same contraption, maybe in the same place and way he kills Kalina. So the 2 glass planes closing and crushing them. So that would change a little bit the ending that I proposed, the Kalina ending, where she would take part in the Revenge of the Ghosts. And there would be a couple of extra ghosts there too, that either would help Kalina in the Revenge too, or could be a problem for the other characters that were still alive at this point in the movie, because they also are not part of the Black Zodiac. So imagine that if they are not stuck in the center of the house, they would be free roaming the house, right? So they would basically be an extra threat to deal with, right? Well guys, so that concludes our sweeping changes and our small changes too. So far we have been working basically with elements that the movie already gave us, So I'm just switching things around, just changing the timing of certain actions and situations, changing the order of the ghosts, so changing up a little bit of the attacks too. But now we are going to go to the more crazy changes that I could possibly make. These are in the optional changes category, which are basically changes that involve aspects and concepts that are not even hinted at in the movies. They are completely alien to the movies. But these are a bunch of ideas that I've had over the years of using new concepts and applying them to the movie. So let's see how a few of those go. The first optional change that I would propose here are control items. So this one is going to take a little bit of setup to do. So I am a tabletop RPG player. So I've been playing like Dungeons and Dragons and similar games for like 20 years. And in Dungeons and Dragons, the third edition, we have two spells. We have Sympathy and we have Antipathy. So two very powerful spells. And Sympathy you cast in an object or in some place, and this place attracts creatures of a certain kind. And Antipathy obviously does the opposite, so it repels creatures, forbidding them from entering a certain place or touching a certain object. So I always thought it would be interesting in the movie if the characters like found out like a secret room in the basement that has all these items that are items that relate to each member of the zodiac, not the zodiac itself like is in the book, but the spirits that were chosen to play the part of the zodiac. So for example, you find an item that repels the juggernaut, you find an item that repels the hammer, you find an item that attracts the firstborn son, and so on, you know. And these having several of these items and having the characters have access to the stories of several of these ghosts that were filmed and were used in the ghost files extra in the DVDs, that would give a reason for some of these stories to be told in the movie. And that would also make the characters not so helpless against the ghosts, basically just hiding from them, hiding behind the glasses and like throwing flares at them. They would also have these control items that in certain situations would be able to repel the ghosts, but they would have to know which ghosts and would have to know their stories. And for that change to work, the movie would have to be longer, as I proposed above. So that would be the first optional change that I would use, but not all ghosts would have control items, because then the movie would be too bloated. And nothing like too crazy or too complicated, just maybe some item that was connected to the story of the ghost in question, right? So that's the first one. The second one, because of the control items, because of the relevant ghost stories, that basically would turn that the part where they are in the basement and they have to return to the library, and after they leave in the version that I proposed, the movie would be longer. So it would basically become a trench war. So I like to name this the Battle of the Corridors. So it would basically mean that for each inch of corridor, for each door that opens, for each glass that closes off a path, it would be a fight, you know, for them to go for a place to another place. They would have to either repel a ghost, but then maybe they can use only one of the items, and the other group it's with another item. So the wrong ghost comes and you don't have the item to repel it, and you have to proceed through that corridor before the house moves again. So, you know, it'll be an absolute war for every meter, for every centimeter in that house, you know. So that would change it up the movie a little bit. I don't know if that would make the movie good or if that would add some element of strategy to the movie, but I think it's an interesting concept to explore, you know. Other option that could have been explored in the movie, Bobby. So Bobby, he spends a lot of time in the basement before Cyrus captures him. So maybe, just maybe, you could kill Bobby, or could have, while his mom is trying to tell him to leave, one of the ghosts that has already escaped just kills him, basically. Or other family members, because this version that I proposed, there will be some extra Kriticos people in the house. So maybe one of the other family members died earlier, and then Bobby is killed by him. So that would also be an interesting dynamic, because you would have two members of Arthur's family trapped in the house, and one of them would be his son. So, but his son would not be bound by the zodiac, right? He would not be part of the zodiac. So it would be like having a double agent. But the problem is that he's a kid, right? So what info could he help the guys with is up to debate, right? So because there would be extra Kriticos in the house, extra family members, having Bobby as a ghost would be interesting, because maybe he could kill another family member that is not one of the main ones, right? And that would make him very dangerous, because he's also not in the zodiac, right? So he could eventually maybe even meet Arthur and Kathy, or you could switch around and kill Kathy and keep Bobby alive, because one of them would have to be alive for the final part of the movie to work, right? So Bobby's death could be an interesting concept to look at. This one I've already spoken a little bit about, which is more flares and more items to fend off the ghosts. So I already spoken about the control items, but more flares and more different items to combat the ghosts, not only the glasses to see them, would be interesting. But for a lot of people, I think this particular one would not be as good, because the part that scares people the most about the movie is basically being defenseless in this house with this bunch with this violent ghosts and stuff. But in a longer movie, for it to work, because all the ghosts would have been more violent, they would need more ways to combat them, and not only run away from them, right? And there could be also a spell canceling device. And now I'm not talking about the spells, the sound. I'm talking about the spells in the glass. So some sort of liquid or something that would make the ghost be able to pass through. That could probably have been used by the extra henchmen that Cyrus would have in this version. That would make them even more scary, right? Because not that they can control the ghosts, but they can kind of guide them through several sections of the house to get to another place and kill somebody or something like that. And this last optional change here, I would call it Bloodbath. This one would only work if the ending that I've already proposed back in the beginning of the video was used. So instead of Cyrus killing Kalina and his other henchmen, basically crushing them just like he crushed Kalina in the original movie, when Damon's and Dennis's spirits stop the chants in the basement together, the ghosts would basically be free to roam the house again, because there would be no spell holding them in place. And because there would be Cyrus and like 3 other henchmen, because there would be Kalina and the 2 family members. So before, they immediately start running away, because they notice that the ghosts are moving around again. And the ghosts would basically divide themselves in groups of 3s. So you would have 4 teams, basically, of ghosts, hunting these 4 guys throughout the house and killing them in absolutely brutal ways to sate their revenge, just like in the original movie, before the glasses blow up in the house and their prison finally vanishes, right? So instead of throwing Cyrus in the eye, I would have those ghost teams basically hunting all the henchmen around the house, and it would have been cooler to see the ghosts, their final act in the house being basically killing all these people that were trying to use them. And now, guys, after I talked about all the optional changes, I would like to talk about the 2 different extra endings that I promised in the beginning of the video. The first one goes in line with most of what I was proposing before. The second one is a little bit more magical and fantastical. So let's start with the first one. The ending goes basically as I proposed in the sweeping changes section of the video, with Damon's and Dennis's spirit breaking the machine, and Arthur's protecting his kids while the house blows up. So that part doesn't change, and no Maggie. But during the confusion, one of the family members that supported Cyrus survives, getting the book, the Arcanum, and escaping in the lawyer's car with it, and the spells and other items relevant to the machine and the Black Zodiac are with him too. So he took basically everything that was relevant and important to the creation of the machine and to the opening of the Eye of Hell, right? So that basically means that this guy now can try to build his own machine and can also try to either recreate a Black Zodiac or try to create a completely new one with new spirits, right? So that would obviously open up for sequels, because you have this guy that has all this knowledge at the palm of his hand, right? And maybe other characters and other groups were already surveilling this guy, or maybe even Cyrus, and they already knew what he was up to. And because of the failure, now they themselves will have the option of getting all these items and trying to build the machine themselves, right? So this ending is basically the first ending that I proposed, with the difference that now we have a guy out there that has all the knowledge of how to build a machine and how to structure a Black Zodiac and how to try to open the Eye of Hell. So obviously that would be a great starting point for a sequel. Now for the second ending, and this one I'm going to call it the failure ending. This one's going to get a little wild. So Arthur is thrown in the eye by Cyrus's goons and dies, finishing the whole process of the house. And the eye consumes all the ghosts and opens up a portal to hell that swallows Cyrus and his goons while the house explodes. So basically a complete fail. So Arthur's dead, and Kathy and Bobby survive the explosion and are told by Dennis's spirit to run away as fast as possible, while looking one last time into the eye and seeing an impossible deep hole with a faint red glow that is growing larger and larger and seems to be directing itself to the surface, alongside the growing chorus of a million voices of spirits that are about to be released. So the same voices that they heard on the house before, but a million times louder, because there are millions of spirits that are coming to Earth now. They get one of the cars and drive away as fast as possible, while Dennis and Damon, their spirits, are sitting in the back part of the car, and both promise to protect them from the upcoming hellish apocalypse. So the movie ends with a shot of the car reaching the nearest city, with the spirit of Arthur, I remember that he dies in this version, standing on top of the car in his ghostly form, and he's basically not looking in the direction the car is going. He's looking backwards. He's looking at the horizon opposite to where the car is moving, and he's seeing the huge red glow in the direction that the house is, and he's starting to hear the ghostly voices. They are getting louder and louder, and then he promises to Jean and to himself that he will forever protect his kids, and that he will search for a solution for this colossal predicament, even if it costs his own eternity, meaning the own existence of his soul. This is my favorite version that I've come up with over the years. And since the story obviously would not be finished, it would be basically a start point, a sequel would be a must to explore the Eye of Hell, the influx of millions of evil spirits into our reality, and the new and improved Cyrus, and how humanity would deal with these challenges. So there you go. This one got a little bit crazy, I know. It's kind of apocalyptic and kind of Lovecraftian in a way. And now there's this eye, and there's countless spirits that are going to return to exact their revenge on their earthly counterparts. And it's up to the spirits of our fallen heroes here, and Kathy and Bobby and whoever else they are able to convince to help to try to close the eye, right? So I know it's kind of a fantastical way of ending the movie, but I really enjoyed the idea of creating like this worldwide change because of something that's so impactful like the Eye of Hell, and having all the knowledge and everything, past, present, and future, knowing everything and stuff. And as everything that involves hell, I always remember of the Wishmaster movies, the Wishmaster franchise, where basically every time anybody makes any kind of wish, you receive a devilish version of that wish. You receive what you asked for, but not in the way that you wanted, but in the way that the demon, which is the jinn in those movies, delivers to you. So I've always thought that the idea of the Eye of Hell and the reward for making the machine actually work and going through the entire process would give you your reward, but not in the way that you were looking for, right? So basically that's it, guys. If you watched until this point, I thank you very much. This was the second 13 Ghosts video, and in the third video we will be expanding 13 Ghosts. So new ideas for sequels, ideas for prequels, ideas for episodic series, and other different concepts that future installments of 13 Ghosts could have. And just imagine basically how a franchise based on 13 Ghosts would be, right? And thank you very much for watching until this point, and until the next one, guys.